Every great filmmaker has two wolves inside of them. Scorsese has a mob wolf.
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
And a religion wolf.
There is something more important than the judgment of the church.
The Coen brothers have a literary wolf.
You should admit your situation. There will be more dignity in it.
And a slapstick wolf.
The guy?
And James Gunn has a sincerity wolf.
Maybe that's the real punk rock.
And a sarcasm wolf.
Use smaller bullets. What?
Oftentimes these filmmakers are at their best when both wolves are howling in harmony, so to speak.
Mantis! Look out!
For Gunn in particular, Superman was a virtuosic melding of both halves of his writing voice, a fiercely sincere repositioning of one of the genre's most iconic characters that still made room for Gunn's trademark comic wit. On the other hand, Peacemaker Season 2 is what happens when Gunn's sarcasm overtakes his sincerity, a tonal hodgepodge with heartfelt moments drowned out by running gags and non sequitur quips. But before we get into Peacemaker and Superman, we have to establish some important context, because James Gunn's entire career has been marked by the push and pull of these two polarities. And from the beginning, his work always shined most brightly when the balance was respected. Gunn's penchant for injecting heart into otherwise silly subject matter was apparent from his earliest efforts. Films like Slither and Super blended genuine emotional stakes with irreverent comedy, and his work in the 2000 Scooby-Doo remake showcased his ability to work within studio-mandated confines to deliver broadly appealing material centered around ragtag misfits. It wasn't long before Gunn's uncanny knack for balancing contrasting tones caught the attention of even bigger studio bigwigs, Kevin Feige chief among them. Back in the early 2010s, Feige knew the task of bringing the Guardians to life demanded a creative with a highly specialized skill set, and there were very few filmmakers in Hollywood with a more finely suited resume than James Gunn. And not only did he deliver, he single-handedly proved the MCU could capture the zeitgeist without a single Avenger on the screen. With Gunn at the helm, Guardians became a minor cultural phenomenon. In Guardians 1, Gunn crafted an airtight narrative propped up by an impeccably characterized team of lovable antiheroes. In Guardians 2, he expanded the emotional scope of the franchise by introducing fraught familial ties and deepening the themes of found family at the bedrock of the series. But even as Gunn was turning Guardians into an undeniable success, there were some early warning signs of bad writing habits that would calcify into major crutches by the time Peacemaker rolled around. And the most common of those crutches is something that I've come to refer to as the Gunn redirect. Be warned, once you've seen this, you cannot unsee it. So as we've established, Gunn's specialty is toggling between sincerity and sarcasm, which means his writing often diverges into extended pockets of quip-based comedy. But since he'll have to revert back to sincerity to propel the plot forward, he'll need one character to come out with a quick line of interruptive dialogue to get things back on track. In Guardians, that character is almost always Gamora. Take this scene for example.
You're cybernetically engineered to be a douchebag!
Quill and Rocket are arguing while trying to escape the Sovereign fleet. Rocket goes into a diatribe about putting one of Drax's turds in Quill's pillow.
You put your turd in my bed, I shave you.
The quipping continues for another few seconds.
It won't be my turd, it'll be Drax's. I have famously huge turds.
Until Gamora snaps the narrative back into place with the Gunn redirect.
We're about to die, and this is what we're discussing?
And this scene structure pops up constantly throughout almost all of Gunn's work.
One minute you think someone has a weird shaped head, the next minute just because you realize part of that head is the hat.
This is an important conversation right now.
But Peacemaker most of all.
No, I believed I was a butt baby until I was like 14.
What does this have to do with anything?
It's Berenstein Bears.
Absolutely not. It's actually named after the creators, Stan and Jen Berens.
Does this fucking matter?
And these days, the Gunn redirect has become so efficient and economical that other screenwriters within the MCU began leaning on it as well.
I was in the Avengers.
The Avengers?
Yeah.
Is that a band? Are you in a band?
No, the Avengers is the Earth's mightiest.
How's this helping?
It's just become a cheap and easy way to cycle between radically divergent tones in a screenplay without wasting too much time. It works, but once you notice it, you can't unsee the gears turning. It's like getting an unwanted peek at how the screenwriting sausage gets made. And beyond just his trademark redirect, when Gunn leans too hard on sarcasm, his writing can also fall victim to unfunny running gags.
Quiz me.
What?
About owls. It's not right.
And overlong spurts of Family Guy-esque cutaway bits.
Chihuahua?
Probably wouldn't fit.
Would be cool though.
Why would that be cool?
You tell me.
It wouldn't be.
There's your answer.
Danny DeVito, Will Ferrell, Howard Stern, Baba Booey, Robin Ophelia, Quivers.
You see, it's funny because he said a lot of different names. But despite these shortcomings in the screenwriting department, Gunn became Marvel and DC's go-to guy for turning misfits and C-stringers in the world of comics into fully formed box office behemoths. Between Guardians, The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and Creature Commandos, Gunn had spent a decade carving out a niche for himself, reinventing bargain bin comic book obscurities as legitimate Hollywood IP with mass appeal. And while finding your niche and excelling in it is never a bad thing, it can sometimes lead you into a comfort zone that can be difficult to find your way out of. But in late 2022, with the announcement that Gunn would be running the newly minted DC Studios and making its inaugural film Superman, Gunn would be forced out of that comfort zone for the first time in a decade. In the wake of multiple failed adaptations in the not-so-distant past, the prospect of reinventing Superman would have been an unenviable challenge for any filmmaker, but Gunn in particular faced a steeper uphill climb than most. Because after years of revamping obscure characters into archetypal James Gunn heroes, he now had to reintroduce audiences to the superhero archetype, the one all others descend from. Superman isn't some D-list Bronze Age holdover like Star-Lord or Rocket Raccoon. He's one of the most iconic characters in all of American fiction. For the first time ever, Gunn was faced with adapting a character who was too legendary and ubiquitous to fully reinvent whole cloth. Many detractors were quick to clock the incongruity of DC enlisting the king of the comic weirdos to tell the story of the most straight-laced superhero in the history of the genre. On paper, Gunn doing Superman seemed like a tonal mismatch of unprecedented proportions. But in practice, it was actually a match made in heaven. As it turns out, Gunn leaving his comfort zone resulted in one of the best comic book films of the past 10 years, a barnstorming reaffirmation of Superman as both an essential icon of yesterday and a beacon of a better tomorrow. The constraints and expectations placed upon Gunn in adapting Superman in 2025 forced him to think outside of the box, leave a lot of his crutches on the cutting room floor, and deliver a film that felt sincere without being saccharine. And he did that not by compromising on his own sensibilities for an icon, but by remolding an icon in accordance with his own sensibilities. Because instead of writing Superman as a towering god or a hokey emblem of patriotism, he wrote the kind of Superman that only he could write, a misfit. To echo Clark's now iconic line to Lois,
Maybe that's the real punk rock.
in a world full of Lex Luthors, simply being compassionate is a radical act of rebellion. But if Superman was Gunn firing on all cylinders outside of his comfort zone, Peacemaker found him faltering within it. After Superman and all the expectations that came with it, Gunn was openly excited about returning to Peacemaker, a comparatively low-stakes series filled with the type of morally gray, affable anti-heroes that have come to be his bread and butter. For at least a moment, the weight of the world was off his shoulders as he hopped back into the tongue-in-cheek, testosterone-fueled world of Peacemaker. The short leash was off, and we were back to getting pure, unadulterated Gunn. Sounds great on paper, right? But ironically, and much like Superman, what seems one way on paper can end up looking very different in practice when it comes to Gunn. Peacemaker Season 2 had an excellent first episode, a classic rock-bottom reintroduction for most of our protagonists centered around a multiversal hook based in character and not cameos. And that alone was impressive, especially considering how DC's biggest competitor has turned the multiverse into little more than a nostalgia porn factory. In fact, I liked the first episode so much, I made an entire video on it. But after a few solid episodes, the cracks really began to show. That multiversal framing device that once promised emotional resonance eventually revealed itself to be an outlet for shock value and cross-franchise tie-ins. Or in other words, hardly any better than what the MCU's got going on right now in the multiverse department. But beyond any of that, the true Achilles heel of Peacemaker Season 2 was Gunn allowing the pendulum to swing too far away from sincerity and too deep into sarcasm. And while yes, Peacemaker is and always was more of a true blue comedy than Superman should ever be, Gunn's unwillingness to keep the quipping under control proved to be the season's biggest weakness. Where Superman's comedy was situational and always rooted in character and scene, Peacemaker's was full of clunky non sequiturs and tired running gags that clouded the emotional undercurrent of the story. Look, I love Vigilante and Freddie Stroma as much as the next guy, but Gunn running that whole quiz me on blank facts bit into the ground as hard as he did was tantamount to character assassination, if you ask me.
Look up Alphax and then see if I know the answer.
By no means was Peacemaker a bad season of television. It definitely had flashes of that Gunn brand brilliance we've all come to expect by now. But in the wake of Superman and the show-stopping entrance it created for the DCU, Peacemaker felt less like a faithful continuation of the new and more like a played-out regression back to the old. It was Gunn totally unrestrained by legacy and expectations, yet ironically boxed in tighter than ever by his own bad habits. Because at the end of the day, Superman and Peacemaker present a genuinely fascinating case study in how creative constraints can set a filmmaker free, and how their absence can prevent them from growing. Because Gunn, and maybe all creatives to one degree or another, sometimes need a pressure cooker for progression. When the pressure peels off, so too does the progress. Or maybe this guy should just stop writing fucking 7 projects at one time. I don't know. So as always, thanks so much to everyone who made it this far. Like and subscribe for more content like this. Patreon and other links down in the description, and I'll catch y'all soon.